Doctor.
Allow me to say thank you to you and all the members of this National Assembly to keep the toll as low as $100, which we support. But Barbicians and others using the bridge continue to pay a minimum of $2,200 as not a cent was set aside for a subsidy to bring down the toll. Sugar workers, most of whom work and live in Berbice, have been offered no relief. They are expected 10% wage increase, but they have to wait longer. Old age pensioners also have to wait perhaps the next 5 years for the expected $15,000 monthly. I share the views of MP Jennifer Wade from West Berbice Region 5 that our regions are important for agricultural progress of Guyana. Yet they get substandard. In Adelphi County, just February gone, sugar workers brought me 2 bottles of water, which was as red as blood. They have to drink this water while the minister boasts of safe potable water in Guyana. It is clear that the budget is rendered meaningless as Guyanese do not get more for money. For this reason, Mr. Speaker, I cannot see how this House can pass the estimates in the current form without adjustment to ensure better use for taxpayers' money. Berbice is the ancient county, but it also as an organized county. We face blackouts, high unemployment, mass exodus of our best minds, drug, alcohol abuse, high crime rates, etc. Ministry. The greatest failure is the Ministry of Home Affairs, in that our people continue to feel fear and suffer violence as part of the general insecurity in Guyana. This government pumped over 16 billion Guyana dollars into the security sector in 2012, and yet 137 people were murdered. In addition, there were 3,777 reports of serious crimes. That is a serious crime every 2 days. The police reported that in 2012, there was a 21% increase in robbery under arms. The sources, Mr. Speaker, I quote, is the Kaieteur News. The more money we put into this ministry, the worse the crime record is. Criminals have taken the law-abiding citizens hostage. But we continue to grow, to throw good money after a malfunctioning security system with discredited Ministry of Home Affairs. Does this make sense? I ask this honorable House. No wonder, Mr. Speaker, the PPP is without many friends among the working class in Berbice and elsewhere. Sugar workers at BAT on March 4, 2013 came out on the road to block the entourage of President Pramutar as he was heading from Abuja. They called for Gao to go. Less than a year ago, a robbery happened on Bengal Farm in Berbice, where all the phones for several quarantine police stations remained engaged throughout the robbery, which lasted over half of an hour. When the family who were robbed finally got through to the number 62 police toll station at the outpost, they were referred to Springlands police station. The Springland police station then referred them to Wayne police station. we'll then refer them to New Amsterdam Police Station. It's a shame, Mr. Speaker. This is the only one example of the royal push around, even once we spent $16 billion on the security sector in 2012. Long after the robberies were gone, some 45 minutes after the incident, the police arrived. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Home Affairs has not offered any kind of effective leadership to the men and women in uniform, but want to come here year after year and collect more billions of dollars. Mr. Speaker, in layman terms, for us to make progress in this national budget and this allocation for security, the minister must go. This national security strategy must be crafted not only by experts, but with the experiences of the ordinary people like that family from Bengal Farm. No security strategy can work unless those people are served. Mr. Speaker, once Mr. Roy remains on top of this structure, the security strategy will fail. Our $70 billion will be squandered and wasted, and we will no longer be better off. Mr. Speaker, what Mr. Roy doing 5 years ago that distracted him from the national security strategy? Did he just wake up? Why only today? From the first day he turned as Minister of Home Affairs, he should have been strategizing, working to improve professionalism in the security forces, working to enhance the safety of our communities, and General should have been in forefront of ensuring that we have better public safety in the land of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, we in the AFC stand prepared to work constructively with capable Minister of Home Affairs to reform and execute a 5-year strategic plan for the security sector of this country. We in the AFC stand ready to work with capable ministers of Home Affairs to operationalize an integrated crime information system. We in the AFC stand ready to work with a capable Minister of Home Affairs to operationalize the forensic lab. We in the AFC stand ready to work with a capable Minister of Home Affairs to provide air and sea capacity to fight pirates who continue to terrorize our fishermen, especially those in the quarantine. We in the AFC stand ready to work with a capable Minister of Home Affairs to professionalize the police force and empower the community policing groups to combat criminals. But, Mr. Speaker, we cannot, with a clear conscience, be aware of the failings of this minister and still put $17 billion at his disposal. The police commissioner and the police. Mr. Speaker, we, the AFC, want to substantially the commissioner of police, not another Amitabh Bachchan or Clint Eastwood. This government continues to micromanage and disrespect the police service by keeping ACTA in place for so long. This disrespect for our men and women in uniform at the end and must end. Leadership is needed to stamp out the fried rice tax that is extracted from drivers by some rank. Leadership is needed to stamp out rogue cops who rob minors and beat the wives and children of hard-working pork knockers. Leadership is needed to fight criminal practices in the security forces themselves, like the destruction of firearms in issuance book, to hide fraud and coalition in arms crimes. More importantly, Mr. Speaker, security ranks from be free from starvation wage which this PPP government gives them year after year. We are only condemning our ranks to a life of beggary, extortion, crime, and uncertainty. Mr. Speaker, we could have made a good investment in our national security by giving, in the 2013 budget, across the board wage an increase of 10%. This should be our offer also to others in the public service. At the same time, we must reform the police standard operating procedures to weed out torture as a method of police work. Have we already forgotten the 16-year-old whose testicles were burnt? Have we forgotten police rebels in uniform who were caught in tape beating a child and his mother in Marudi Mountains? In Region 6, Mr. Speaker, in 2010, when Mr. Maxwell Semple, the president of the East Bank Berbice Hire Car Drivers Association, held a protest against the condition of the East Bank Berbice Main Road, the government of Guyana became fully aware of the need for urgent action to bring relief to the 15,000 plus people that need this vital road linked as a transportation lifeline. Mr. Speaker, since then, it was one excuse after another, and still 3 years after, no relief for the people in Berbice. Is this the action of a caring and fit government who has billions for a Banana Republic project like the Kingston Marriott Hotel in the middle of the Garden City, but no money for the vital road link? In 2012, Peter Ramos and his wife Rose appealed to President Ramotar while on his way to Plantation Highbury for help. A promise was made but never kept. Mr. Speaker, this government has billions to support the Ponzi scheme like the Kingston Hotel, using 100% of Chinese labor, but they have very little money for Guyanese like the Ramos family. Also, Mr. Speaker, one of the parliamentarians indicated that I have broken the fence of the WIM Community Center ground. That was something that I see malicious and lying in this parliament, in this honorable house, which the regional chairman had given permission. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that the evidence will unfold itself in this house to see this government, because I am living in WIM, that they use this as a vote-getting method. And I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, and this House, that the work started with some of my expense. They only provide the work, to provide the digging. But for 3 years, I want this House to know no cricket was played and there is no cricket pitch as in the park. And this was the result. This is the result, Mr. Speaker, of my hard work. And I will tell you, that is what brought this government up to a minority government. In this country. $100 million is provided as a subsidy to the Demerara Harbor Bridge to repair the pontoons and so on. Mr. Speaker, why we this subsidy to the Demerara Harbor Bridge to keep the toll down? We in the AFC must object to the high toll on the Borvis River Bridge. Mr. Speaker, we demand that $150 million be voted in this budget for the Borvis Bridge. Just be using the toll for public buses and hire cars. They continue to give billions of dollars in contracts to their business friends, many of whom get billions of dollars without any competition in sole source contracts. But this uncaring and heartless PPP have no money to help the poorer class of people who have to cross the Borvis Bridge. Utterly merciless, this political gang that controls the PPP these days. We in the AFC demand a subvention to be paid to the operators of the bridge to bring relief to the people, especially workers. Mr. Speaker, the AFC rejects this tendency of the Minister of Finance to continually blame the workers and the sugar belt for the state of Gaisuku. He must get his facts right. It is politically appointed directorates and those who saddle the industry with the apprentice Chinese builders that are responsible for the state of the industry. Mr. Speaker, it is time to call them out. It was the Jagdeo regime and the Gaisuku board, of which Mr. Ramtar, President Ramtar, sat, that chose the apprentice Chinese contractor who built a white elephant that is the biggest threat to the industry today in Guyana. Sugar workers are demotivated by the mass mentality of the top executive in the industry and the failure of the recognized union to bring greater fairness and equity to the labor relations plight of this country. We call on Gawu to understand whom they serve. The workers, not the office of the president. Sugar workers have been calling for a new union, but the AFC advised them to struggle in their own union and to demand better representation. We hope Gawu is taking note of the move in the sugar belt that is happening currently today, where you have to cut 4 beds of canes for 1 pound of sugar cane. Slavery has come back to this country in the sugar industry. Cane cutters are returning back to slavery. They are asked to cut more beds to make a day's wage. They are asked to cut young canes and shorter canes. They are asked to work 5 but 6 days a week. What has happened to the gains of 40 hours per week, Mr. Speaker? In the sugar belt, there are groups of young, jobless people. Yet this government finds work for people from other countries, like the Marriott Hotel, where 100% of the workforce are from China. This is an anti-working class strategic move. It is an anti-human development strategic move. It is anti-Guyanese. It discriminates against our own people. Let me clear, Mr. Speaker, We welcome people of all nations into Guyana to work on any project, but they must compete with Guyanese for a job. And only if there is no Guyanese qualified for the role, then it can be offered to a foreigner. So we have people in this country, Mr. Speaker, who can turn spades, who can fetch bricks, and they can work. But why is it our people are jobless? Mr. Speaker, the old people say charity begins at home. Mr. Speaker, in truth, this 2030 budget has little for the working poor and the unemployed vulnerable.
Honourable Member, your time has elapsed. Mr. Ram.
Could I ask, Honorable Mr. Speaker, 10 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes to conclude.
This 2030 budget has little for mothers of Guyana. Those at the bottom of the feeding chain in the sugar belt, and very little for the provisions. In fact, this 2030 budget, Mr. Speaker, in its current form, does not deserve support from me as a Guyanese, first, and politician after. The real danger if we in the AFC support this budget, the 2013 budget.
Honourable members, we have an entire separate debate going on. It's not fair to the member who has come, is trying to make his presentation, and there's another debate going on.
The real danger if we in the AFC support this 2013 budget in the current form as presented by the minister is that more billions will have to be borrowed in the name of the children of Guyana and to fund many ill-conceived projects. By the end of this 10th Parliament, we are confident that the Guyanese people will pay back this PPP government the favor it has done to them, to leave them jobless and exposed to oppression. They will be out, but it would take many, many years to settle the unjustifiable new debts in the name of the future generation. To rebuild this beautiful Guyana, we need a dream, and to dream big in this dream. We must see that those who plunder the treasury, give away contracts, sell out our airwaves, take bribes, forfeit the best lands, and otherwise corrupt or give justice. For a start, we should not feed the appetite of this regime. We have to trim this budget of excesses and channel more money to the workers and pensioners. Therefore, we have to put the checks and balances in place to the Mr. Speaker. This budget lacks vision. It is heavy on words and weak on delivery. This budget lacks a conscience. This budget does not address the main issues of job creation and a better life for our people. As the last speaker said, if we don't tell the truth, somebody will tell the truth. Bishop parliamentarians who came to this honorable house and lied.
One second. I will not allow a member to accuse any other member of this House of lying.
That, Mr. Speaker.
And that is also responsible. Thank you.
But to come here, Mr. Speaker, and give a misrepresentation of the reality of the situation, I have to repeat what the last speaker has said. If you don't tell the truth, somebody will tell the truth, and that is a burden under the individual. Thank you.
Indigenous people's representation playing a role in their development. I note till the Honorable Don Hastings expressed opinion that the NPC, justifying this by pointing out that the NTC is housed in the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs. and that they do not have independent funding. Mr. Speaker, this government recognizes the profound role of the NPC. We recognize that this council of elected leaders is working to strengthen the structure and build capacity to carry out its functions. We are aware as a government that village councils are still not paying up their subscription rate, while the NPC too have not been able to mobilize funding through fundraising. That's very minimal at the moment. Mr. Speaker, with this being the case, the government of Guyana makes an annual contribution to the NTC for its operational expenses and exerts no power or pressure on the NPC or its membership. Government support to indigenous organization and institution is nothing new. Government today provides funding to the operation of a constitutionally established Rights Commission with objectives to examine complaints of infringement of the law and rights related to indigenous peoples. A criticism was made, Mr. Speaker, in this House about the IPC of not addressing the rights of Amerindian and not doing anything. Mr. Speaker, you are well aware that since the establishment of the IPC a mere 2 years ago, they have presented to you, Mr. Speaker, their annual reports. This government financially supports also the NRDDB and the Beaver Hill Institute annually through the national budget, which allocates $6 million towards the operational cost of this indigenous institution. And just to mention that in 2011, the 2012 government of Guyana was the largest contributor to the Beaver Hill Institute and the NRDDB, paying in excess of $21 million. The Honorable Sidney Alicop is fully aware of this, of which more than 80% of that $21 million goes for the salaries of the CEO of the NRDDB, principal of the Beaver Hill Institute, tutors and support staff. Notwithstanding such generous contribution from the government, I see it as an investment in the strengthening of indigenous institutions and bodies led by Amerindians, which will in the future be effective to carry out and to continue the facilitation and empowerment of Amerindians, making them objective bodies and institutions that will act in the best interest of the constituency for which they have selected to lead. The People's Progressive Party civic government continues to provide greater political space for indigenous people. The cabinet, the parliament, all speaks for itself. For in this August House, Mr. Speaker, are seated indigenous representatives exercising rights to bring to bear the calling of the Amerindian constituencies. The freedom is ours, Mr. Speaker, to engage with the people, whether at the village level, with the elected leaders, their institutions, or the individuals who choose to bring to our attention existing needs that require our support so as to enhance livelihood and to continue the development of their villages. However, Mr. Speaker, what disturbs me most is the intent of indigenous representatives in this House to seek to deny financial reports for many of the projects slated for funding in the 2013 budget. And here, Mr. Speaker, I specifically refer to the Honorable Sidney Alicop, who, Mr. Speaker, ended his presentation this way. budget. The member also, Mr. Speaker, reinforces call by saying, I cannot and will not support this document. Mr. Speaker, how does he expect to see improvements in the sector he critically reviewed in his presentation? Why would he want to deny the Rupununi, the Amerindians, the nation at large, governmental funded intervention aimed at complementing the efforts of the people across this nation, including the Rupununi? I suspect that he wanted to create a justification or conditions that will justify his utterances that the Rupununi is one of the most backward places in the entire Caribbean. Mr. Speaker, such words coming from Mr. Speaker, such words coming from an executive member of TAG representing indigenous interests on that body, whose objective should be to work to enhance the tourism product of the Rupununi that will encourage and attract tourists to visit. Instead, Mr. Speaker, it appears to be that he's working against the objective of TAG, the objectives of Amerindian development, and the region and the nation at large. Mr. Speaker, this government has no problem in putting indigenous concerns first, because we are aware of the difficult and challenges we've had to face to eliminate the wrongs committed against Guyana's First People and to eradicate the scars of neglect and marginalization over the years gone by. And yes, Mr. Speaker, the People's Progressive Party civic government continue to rise to the challenge by making the necessary intervention for Amerindians who deserve to be put on par among all Guyanese. It is from this premise, Mr. Speaker, that I refer to Guyana's consistent track record in addressing Amerindians' rights and development. The government of Guyana continues to commit financial investments in support towards obtaining the goals set by village leaders and their communities. I applaud the allocation provided in the budget 2013, which offers procure measures that will benefit and address existing challenges and remaining gaps faced by Amerindians and hinterland residents. Mr. Speaker, whilst many of the indigenous people and minority groups in other countries painstakingly continue to struggle for their rights to land, Guyana can share beyond our borders the rich experiences and achievements in this. It is no secret, Mr. Speaker, that Guyana has legislated the process of granting land to indigenous peoples, and the state covered the cost for demarcation. Currently, Guyana today has 98 titled villages, making Amerindians the largest private landowners in Guyana. Mr. Speaker, this year's budget provides $77.9 million to cover expenditure for titling 12 eligible communities. And I am only too willing to provide the go-ahead to the Guyana Lands and Surveys Commission to conduct cadastral surveys for an additional 8 title villages that have approved demarcation of their village boundaries. Mr. Speaker, the People's Progressive Party civic government must be commended for the significant decision to commit from the Guyana Red Plus Investment Fund monies for the ALT project, so as to bring closure to all outstanding titling and demarcation requests, which will result in expanded ownership of land used and occupied by Guyana's First People. Mr. Speaker, while above, Mr. Speaker, on the first day of our debate in Parliament here on the budget 2013, the Speaker, I noted the concern of the Honourable Member, Mr. Vulcan, and his call for Guyanans to ensure that the hinterland economies are put on a sustainable path. I wish to point out that Region 1, 7, 8, and 9 are mostly referred to as Guyana's hinterland. And in these regions, the population are mostly Amerindians. My response, therefore, will be confined to interventions and initiatives undertaken by the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs in the context of the Low Carbon Development Strategy. The LCDS, Mr. Speaker, speaks to pursuing a low-carbon growth path. Amerindians are awaiting in anticipation funding from GRIF, notwithstanding that they have not committed their forests. The Amerindian Development Fund will make available investment funds totaling $350 million that will capitalize community development projects to be implemented in the village over the coming years. Mr. Speaker, of the 166 community-approved projects submitted by the village councils for funding, this year, 27 projects in sectors such as agriculture, tourism, services, forestry, mining, processing, and infrastructure will receive a total disbursement of $135 million. To give you a snapshot of the villages and projects to be implemented by the Amerindians, I wish, Mr. Speaker, to crave your indulgence in citing the villages that are going to be benefited this year. Mr. Speaker, Barabina, Barama, Barnita, Bobadaya, Kamwata, 4 Miles, Manawari, Three Brothers, Waikarabi. All these communities, including Kamwata, which is a satellite of Santa Rosa, are located in Region 1. Bethany, Santa Mission, St. Cuthberts, Maraikabai, Siparuta, satellite of Oriala, Karau, Itabat, Parima, Kukubaru, Karasparu, Monkey Mountain, Alai Central, Jaizan, Zara, Farfarana, Ruperti, Zidilar, Yaramparu, and San Hills. Mr. Speaker, these 27 communities and villages, including satellites, will stand to benefit in the initial phase of the Amerindian Development Fund community development projects. Mr. Speaker, I also want to use this opportunity to highlight that these projects were formulated by the local villages and were subjected to peer review at the meetings of the NPC, including final review by the beneficiary representatives just 2 weeks ago at the launch of the ADF and Inception workshop at the Princess Hotel. This bottom-up approach is commendable and diffuses comments I've heard in this House that consultations are lacking, that the government dictates to indigenous people. Mr. Speaker, we should be proud of our village councils and the villagers, as they have demonstrated that they are capable of identifying the priorities within their locations and is much more committed to take direct ownership and lead in the process of community development. Another initiative, Mr. Speaker, that speaks to sustained economic growth in indigenous communities is the National Hinterland Secure Livelihood Program. where 7 community projects were established and remains relevant for more than 200 farmers living in 15 villages in the Mabaruma sub-region. For increased technical support for agriculture, processing, packaging, tourism, and marketing strategies. And of course, governance to consolidate the many emerging economic initiatives in these communities. The ministry is hopeful that the support component for training will have an impact on strengthening the management capacities and capabilities of the indigenous people to ensure that all the projects are sustainable. Mr. Speaker, the People's Progressive Party civic government is all too willing to provide the support, to partner with the Amerindian leaders, to propel forward by making available those investment funds to assist the growth of enterprises, the potential for expansion and sustaining existing initiatives. Mr. Speaker, sustained economic projects will spearhead the movement towards less dependency, and as the sectors develop, realizing the full relevance for community development, income, and capacities. Mr. Speaker, our task is far from over, and we need to maintain the momentum. The comment made by the Honorable Vulcan on Tuesday that hinterland programs identified in the budget are not good enough for hinterland development, and the government needs to ensure that hinterland economies are put on a more sustained path, clearly reflects his inattentiveness to the new dispensation that obtains in the many villages, communities, and settlements that are bound. I dare the colleagues of the Honorable Member Ali Koch to vote against the budget 2013. I dare you. Consolidating efforts towards greater productivity, community food security, consistency in product availability, and the opportunity to market their product, indigenous products. Expose your true intentions behind the shouts of concerns for Amerindian development. I wish to assure this August House that the People's Progressive Party civic government have, within the level of resources available, continued to progressively direct investment in changing economic and infrastructure landscape of the hinterland, moving it from a status of once backwardness in years gone past to current buoyancy.
Honorable, your time has elapsed.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the honorable member be given an application and benefits of any
Thank you.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay, wait a minute, say.
Mr. Speaker, a lot was already said about education. However, I wish to highlight the increasing access to education by hinterland students. Approximately 30,000 school-age children access nursery, primary, and secondary education. This is unprecedented in the history Students continue to receive substantial support, enabling them to enjoy this basic right, even as resident settlement pattern proved to be challenging to both the students and the government. Today, Region 1, 7, 8, and 9 can now boast Yet
hear you.
still, Mr. Speaker, honorable
Allow the members to address.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your protection. Today, Mr. Speaker, Region 1789 can now boast of having access to 12 secondary schools over and above the single one existed in Region 9. Problems raised in the educational sector by the Honorable Ali Cock was of course way out of line. And yet, Honorable Hastings raised real challenges existing in the sectors. Sir, I wish to assure that government's effort to address the need for additional classroom and dormitory spaces is on the agenda. At Cato, the People's Progressive Party civic government has committed $728 million to establish a state-of-the-art secondary school. Mr. Speaker, again, this will be done in the most popularly mentioned region in this House during this debate, in Region 8. Transportational needs of our students continue to be a challenge, and we continue to address it. Every year, both land and water transportation are provided towards improving access to transportation in villages which have an impact on school children, health emergencies, and transportational pressures. Is that because the last 3 years have seen an investment in the sum of $23.6 million for water transport and the land transport of $90.6 million investments. To alleviate the burden of parents in providing uniforms to school children, the school uniform distribution program benefited 30,000 Kimberlin students. Mr. Speaker, this cost $76 million, and this is a significant sum, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Hinterland School, the Hinterland Scholarship Program now offers eligible students to be able to attend the secondary school, which they have placed as a result of their achievements. This year, allocation provides $66 million for the Hinterland Scholarship Program, benefiting 388 students, an 8% increase over last year's scholarship numbers. I am proud to announce that 62 students graduated from the Hinterland Scholarship Program in 2012. Currently, Hinterland scholars are offered a minimum of 9 subjects at CSEC examinations, and 80% passes are achieved. I say this is commendable as it equals their successes of their counterparts in the school that they attend. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Agrarian Affairs continue to grant direct subsidies to students through accommodation, boarding, pocket allowances to Hinterland students to facilitate better learning conditions and to access to schools that they have worked for and achieved. Mr. Speaker, the impacts of these initiatives in the educational field will no doubt ensure that Amerindians benefit from the government's investment in human capital. It would be remiss of me, Mr. Speaker, not to mention the opportunities to tertiary education for Amerindian students. Mr. Speaker, my colleague, Minister of Foreign Affairs, Carla Rodriguez, provided already quite a snapshot of what obtains in one single region as it relates to students of indigenous parentage who benefit from tertiary education. Mr. Speaker, whilst entrepreneurial initiatives in the villages are taking place, the current focus on continued development of economic infrastructure, such as improved water, provision of electricity and transportation, will facilitate better competitiveness for village products. Mr. Speaker, the road constructions and rehabilitation has been a process in development, and the PPP civic government has been endeavoring to continuously undertake the $2 billion Hinterland Road Program for upgrading the main roads network will see central connection of Linden to Lethem improved, Lethem to Aishalton extended, and into Region 8 and into Region 9 into the north and south Carolinas. Mr. Speaker, I beg that the member who asked when should take a visit to these areas and speak to Minister Ben on these matters. Mr. Speaker, infrastructure is a positive indicator of development. The hinterland topography and geographical location makes it difficult for transportation and communication. However, with continued intervention on Amerindian development impacts on the following, and we are not afraid to mention. Mr. Speaker, Hinterland Solar Electrification Program has taken off successfully. The ministry has collaborated with the Office of the Prime Minister for the distribution of solar panels to Amerindian villages. A total of 10,858 solar panels were distributed during the second phase. A question, Mr. Speaker, was asked sometime on Tuesday in this House on how the solar panel units are distributed and are they working. And Mr. Speaker, I open an invitation to those who ask the question. Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, when you take a sojourn into the hinterland, you will enjoy the evening as each house in the villages that have received such panels, they light up as the evening comes in. And it is a sight to see, whereby today, when it was far-fetched for our indigenous population to ever consider owning a solar panel or enjoying lights in their homes, it is a reality. Mr. Speaker, investing in the people's health. The truth of the matter, Mr. Speaker, is that the ministry which oversees the ministry's hospital has accommodated last year 1,229 patients. Mr. Speaker, this is still a concern with our government. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I wish to assure this House that the allocation provided to provide such a service has been well spent. Today, Mr. Speaker, we have introduced various protocols for the operation of that hospital. Mr. Speaker, I wish to say that today, while the numbers have remained high, it is not all patients that are in that number, because today we still cater for patients' relative to accompany them to assist during the time when they are out of hospital and when they need very soft caring from their families. Culture and heritage, Mr. Speaker, is also a focus of this government. Mr. Speaker, this year we will once more be showcasing heritage, Amerindian heritage in its splendor. We have over the years, Mr. Speaker, moved this event to one that now is much an attraction to all Guyanese. And Mr. Speaker, while it may be one of the main events that highlights indigenous culture, it is an event that brings to life in this nation the recognition that indigenous people is a focus in our country. Many countries, Mr. Speaker, do not afford their indigenous people such an opportunity to showcase their culture, heritage, nor tradition. Mr. Speaker, our welfare service also provides great assistance to communities and residents who over the many years were not able to access any form of opportunity to register themselves. But with the advent of our government, Mr. Speaker, this registration for birth certificates have been a great challenge. Mr. Speaker, while I rush the ending of my presentation, because I realize the time is going, I want to say that we have completed over the 20 years we have been in government, more than 30,000 birth certificates for Amerindians. A poor legacy left by the preceding government, which our government has had to address. Mr. Speaker, if in your time, not your time, Mr. Speaker, if in the time of the opposition, they could not even afford the basic opportunity and courtesy to indigenous people to provide them with a document of identity, Mr. Speaker, then that tells a sad story on their part. Mr. Speaker, I end here by saying to my colleagues on this side that we will stand firm and that we will provide the support to the Minister of Finance to channel this budget that obtains in this House today for the benefit of our Guyanese people can start to live the Guyanese dream, which my colleague, Reverend Ali, has so very well put to this House.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Members, it is exactly 4 o'clock upon my watch, so we will take the suspension for 1 hour. By way of announcement, 2. The first is that more information will be forthcoming, but there will be a wake for those who are interested for the former Minister of Education, Dr. Bisnot, on Sunday evening at the Humaniana. That wake will be hosted by the Ministry of Education and his former, those under his charge formally. But I believe information as to the funeral and so forth will be provided. The clerk may advise whether or not we may have something here, and in what involvement we will have, if any at all, have the foreign Elizabeth family. The second announcement is that as part of the arrangement between the Deputy Speaker and I for sharing of the responsibilities of presiding over the National Assembly, the Deputy Speaker will be presiding after the recess, and we will be working on some of the days when she will be presiding as well. Thank you very much.